You were chopped up? Did you say you were chopped up, Paul?
Chopped up, yes. You can, the marks are still here. Stabbed, chopped up. I got back to school.
3. Well, hello, Ardenites, and welcome to another edition of the Hot Seat. We've been offline for quite a few weeks, but we're glad to be back, and we're back just literally days away from the reunion of all reunions happening in Atlanta, Georgia, between July 19 and 21. It's going to be a great event. Ardenites from the 4 corners of the earth will be converging on Atlanta, the Crown Plaza Hotel, and it promises to be a real exciting event. And we'll be honoring many people at the award ceremony on the Saturday, that's July 20. And one of them is with us in our hot seat today. His name is Paul BARNETT. I like to call him the amazing Paul BARNETT. Welcome, Paul.
Thanks, Mark.
Did I say Paul?
Paul.
Welcome, Paul.
Thanks.
It's great to have you, Paul. I must tell you, you were one of the very first persons when I was going to Ardenne that I understood the value of volunteerism and mentorship just by virtue of how you gave back to the school. And I've always told you about this marquee event as it relates to that bus that you organized to donate to Ardenne. Do you remember that?
Very clearly, because Mr. Banks wrote to me when I became president for the Ardenne Past Student Association then, and said, you know, all the past students have gone abroad and say they promised us a bus, but nothing has ever happened. And I said to him, Mr. Banks, it will happen. And so we started a campaign in Toronto to raise funds to buy this bus. But I was just saying to my children around the dinner table tonight, the episode of that bus, because they remember it parked outside of my house for a few days before it left for Jamaica. We went to the Ford Motor Company and said to them, we want a bus for a school in Jamaica. And they gave us a price. I also found out that there was a charitable price for domestic and for foreign. Well, they made a mistake and they gave us the domestic rate. And then later on, they found out that the bus was going to be coming out of the country, going to a third world country, and it was a different rate. But the contract was signed already. So they let it go through. But then we needed $12,000 to pay for that bus. And we had just started not too long ago. And the guys looked at me and said, so Paul, what are we going to do? So I said, you know, don't worry about it. I went to my bank manager and I said, I need a personal loan to buy this bus for my school. And my bank manager called me and says, come down at 4 o'clock and sign the papers. I went down and took out a personal loan. And the association paid for it for 4 years. Every month, the core group gave me money to pay that loan. But the other part of that was, the bank called me and said, Paul, we need to get the papers back from you because we have to register it against the loan. And I said to the bank manager, that's going to get hard to do because the bus has left Canada already. And he said, you know what? You got a credit rating, so let it go through. And the bus went to Jamaica. And you know the rest of it
is history. Well, let's go to some pictures, Paul, because I found this, you know, here's how we're going to start the story. The amazing Paul BARNETT. And yes. I found this picture quite interesting. Explain this picture to us.
Well, you know, my wife passed on last year, March.
Right.
And in our honor, we decided to give a a student of Jamaican heritage a scholarship that having difficulty going to university and was going to do in the medical field, which my wife was in. And so we offered the first scholarship to this student last year, and we sort of follow her through. It's a year now. She has completed her first year. She's doing well. I called her to come to this year's graduates. We offer another scholarship to another Jamaican student, which is going on to do medicine at the same university that she's at. And we're going to link them together because I interface with them still throughout the course of the year. So I'm sort of bringing them together. So as we go along, I'm going to have a group of these who have been awarded scholarships through my wife's program.
Wonderful, Paul. This picture just captures why you do it, doesn't it?
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
It's really about the student and about the Ardenne student.
Right. And she's a student here in Canada, in Toronto. And this is one student which has done very well, but she's from a single parent home, and it was going to be difficult for her to go to university. So the scholarship will just help her.
Okay, let's flip the pages. So here's some history. On the left is a letter written in 1987, the 4th of May, by one Henley Morgan to you, Paul.
Yes.
And this is our first reunion.
First reunion. Henley had just started the Jamaica chapter. And by the way, the Jamaica chapter got started after the Toronto one for the second time.
Okay.
So in order to get some traction of the Alumni Association in Jamaica, we decided both in Canada and Jamaica to sort of work on a project that would bring everybody together. So Henley sent me this letter and said, let's do it. And I jumped in, got the association here behind it, and it was great. It was great. I remember going down to the Oceana. And that's the Oceana Hotel. That's where we ended up having our first reunion banquet and the first Hall of Fame inductees.
Amazing. I would have just about left sixth form at Ardenne, and Henley was certainly a go-getter. Back in the day and even now, he's doing fabulous work in Trenchtown, and
yes,
Ardenne flag very high, doing wonderful social interventions down there.
I saw him last week when I was down there. Yes.
Hope he makes it to Atlanta.
Well, he didn't know this was happening until I told him.
Oh no, I must give him a call.
Yes.
About it. Now, the history of the lunch program. So the lunch program has always been twinned with alumni activities. So that was a pivot point, I take it, for alumni support to the school over the years.
Yes, we after we had finished the bus, I'm always looking for what next and how can we keep the members engaged. And this one, I went to Jamaica once, and I saw students, and they were telling me that they had come to school hungry. Or there was a case where there were like 3 or 4 or 5 in the family, and they didn't come to school every day because one got fed one day and one got fed. And I said, this is crazy. So we started a lunch program. So what I did was I went out and I got a little box made up, Ardenne logo in it, and Ardenne, like a little church, a little school. And I said to the membership, I'm going to give each of you a box. Every time you have a meal, drop 25 cents in the box. At the end of the month, we're going to clear those boxes. And we're going to send them to Ardenne for students. And so we've been doing that since, I think it's 1998. 1988, we started that program. We're still doing it. Brunel Chin has been our coordinator for that, and she's doing a tremendous job just keeping it going. Because we have money in the bank there, and we disperse funds to the school on a per semester basis. At one time we got a report from the school, and they could give us. We had 33 students that we're feeding every day.
Okay. Now look at the little math here. Let's go back to the bus. So this was a school bus. This was a school bus project.
Yes.
So this was your little balance sheet for
Yes.
bus.
Yes. This was the balance sheet here. This is what after the cost, which was 16,000. It should have been I think 18,005 because it is not a domestic rate.
Right.
It should have it was a foreign rate, but we got it for the 16,000. And then we had the logo and thing that was done on it. And we were very proud. I was very proud to drive it across Toronto to home, and then to the shipping point. So there you go.
And they're presenting it here.
Yes.
No, that's not you there. Who's
no, that's Henley Morgan presenting to Mr. Banks, and there's Mr. Banks, and there's Flo there.
Yes, this is Flo here. Yes,
that's Flo, and that's some of the executive that was there. There's I think Mr. Lawrence behind there.
Right.
There and these were some of the board members there.
And there's the Reverend Cleve Grant over to the right.
Exactly, Reverend Cleve Grant. He was there, but yes. And
When was this? Well, this was 1987, was it?
1986.
No, 86.
86. Yeah, I think it's 86.
Okay.
Yes.
This was really quite an amazing thing to happen to the school because I don't recall many schools, if any schools, had a school bus, branded and moving children. I know for quite a few years it served the sports teams at Ardenne as well.
And they fixed that bus up over and over, and we were proud to come down and ride in it.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff. And the newspaper, the media captured it.
Yes, it was captured all across. It was captured in Jamaica. It was captured in Toronto. I know that because we had different articles, and this was part of the article that was published.
Yeah, amazing stuff. And I think that triggered. Let's not get to your family yet. That triggered a whole new sort of, process, a whole new sort of spirit of volunteerism, and I think it triggered that whole alumni movement and giving back to the school, and many students developing this sort of heart for the school to give back and to help the students.
Yes. There's a story which I usually tell why I give back so much to Ardenne.
Yes, tell us.
Because it's my second life. Mary Olson spared me for a second life. I was walking through Trafalgar Park one day after exam, and I got met by a Rasta guy with a knife. I was completely chopped up over Trafalgar before all those homes were built. I had enough strength to run back to the school.
You were chopped up? Did you say you were chopped up, Paul?
Chopped up, yes. You can, the marks are still here. I got back to school. I passed out to Miss Olson's office.
Oh my.
Miss Olson took me in a little mini minor, got me in the back of the car. That's what I was told. Miss Flemings and Marjorie Graham was in the office, and all I could hear is, "He's dead. I'm dead. I'm dead now."
So you passed out.
Passed out.
Conscious.
I lost so much blood.
Oh my God.
And so Miss Olson took me in a little mini minor, got me down to Andrews Hospital. I was in surgery for 4 or 5 hours because all the muscles had to be stitched up, all the veins had to be put together, everything had to be done. Miss Olson went home, got my mom, and brought her to Andrews Hospital. My dad had just had a stroke, and my mom, when she got my clothes, she didn't go through the front door. She went through the back door so my dad wouldn't see.
Oh man.
And I decided at that point, Lord, if you save me for this, I'll dedicate myself to serving young people and to serving you.
How long were you in the hospital for?
I don't remember, probably, I know I was probably a week recuperating, and then I was home for a little while. because I know that the police came home and they had to tell them, not now. He's in, you know.
At what age was this, Paul? What form were you in?
I was in probably third or fourth form.
Hmm. I never heard this story before, Paul. You don't tell many people about it.
No, but this is what I tell my kids. You see, people don't understand what I do when I do certain things. And when I give back, there's something that drives me. And when I can see that I've got a second life, and what God has helped me to accomplish in this second life, I just keep on giving back. And the more I give back, it seems like the more I get.
So after that traumatic experience, you eventually went back to school.
I went back to school.
What was school like after that?
All kind of rules and regulations Mrs. Olsen made. Nobody could go through that gate by Trafalgar Park after a certain time. This is why they locked the gate at certain times. The girls were not allowed to walk through Trafalgar Park after certain times. They had to walk up Hope Road there, and or walk down to Half a Tree. So there were rules that were made. But life went on, school went on, and people knew about Ardenne. But again, too, I was not the best student at Ardenne. There was a lot of trouble.
You're not the best
Student at Ardenne, because I give a lot of trouble. I remember, oh man,
I can't imagine you giving trouble, Paul.
Mr. Macmillan, Mr. Anderson, who used to sleep in the class there while he's supposed to be teaching there. Oh, we used to have a good time. We had Senora Ellis, we had Sleepy, so we had a good time there. So,
When were your years at Ardenne, Paul?
I went there between 59 and 64.
Some of us weren't born then.
But they were good times. They were good times. I looked at a little brochure, a little thing that I got in a 4x100 relay, Phelps House. And I'm saying, imagine that, eh?
Phelps House. If you were to describe Ardenne, that era, 1959 to 64, what was it like then?
Nothing like it is today. It was that main administration building and the building beside it, and the science block, your little lab, and then as time went on, the buildings came on. Olson Hall was there when we were there, yes, and that was it. Then you had the Roy Banks building. You had the science block. We had the library. Remember, we contributing to make the library go up, and we had a big battle with that with the associations. But the school has developed so much, and I am glad that I was a part of all that development process.
And you were going to Ardenne at a time when they used to tease us, a girls' school that a few boys went to?
Yes.
Were you like, was it like very few boys?
Very few boys, when I went to school, the population of Ardenne was about 600, 650 people, students. And I remember somebody used to say to me, I said, I went to Ardenne. Oh, I thought it was just a girls' school. and even when the form association in Toronto, people says,
Really?
Boys went to Ardenne? Oh yes. And good fellas, people came out doing very well.
Yes. So you left Ardenne.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about early life after school. What did you do?
I left Ardenne. My dad had got a third stroke, and he was just about fading out. And I said to my mom, I can't stay in school much longer. Who is going to look after the family? And so she says, no. Education is what is going to take you through. So I went through up to, I think, fifth form there. And then I went to work for the Ministry of Trade and Industry.
Okay.
And I worked there for 3 years, and I went to school at night to finish off high school. Then after the 3 years, my mom says, all right, that is not good enough. I'm sending it to your aunt in Canada. So in 67, package me off, give me my passport and a few dollars, and say, off you go, discover the world. And I went off to Canada.
And the
Accounting,
years, what were
accounting, accounting was my background. I really loved accounting and
yes.
finance. So I went after that.
So that's what you did in Canada?
So yes, I started doing the accounting degree in Canada, and then I went one summer for holidays to the stock exchange, the Toronto Stock Exchange. I was so fascinated with it. Went back to the university and said, how much credit can I get? So I can take this and take it to the Securities Commission and securities to the securities exams. And that's what I did. And I did all the different courses in the Canadian securities and then specialized in it.
Oh, excellent.
So I worked for RBC Dominion Securities for 18 years.
Mm.
And then in 1990, December 31st, I left RBC Dominion Securities and I registered Paul A. Barnett and Associates. I took back all the banks as my clients. I specialized in the securities and administration, mergers and acquisition, and I took that 5 years and developed myself, everything in that area. And for 30 years, I was a go-to person on Bay Street and on Wall Street.
Wow. That's an amazing story, Paul. Was it difficult to adjust to life in Canada as a young Jamaican?
It was not too difficult then because I was still young and I threw myself into young people.
Mm-hmm.
I got involved with a youth group in Toronto. And they were kind of fascinated with Jamaican lingo and all that. So I had a group of about eight students, high school then. And we grew that little group there to about 50, 60. And they became a force to be reckoned in that area. We met on Friday nights. Sometimes we went to play hockey. Sometimes we just went to play bowling. Just did various things. But it was fun. And they grew.
And in all of that, you managed to maintain the links with Ardenne.
We did, yes. Because you see, my links with Ardenne even goes further back. George Olson and Nellie Olson used to come to my home. They used to come for Sunday dinner. I used to call Mr. George Olson Eli. because I just picture him like the guy in the Bible.
Eli the priest?
The priest. Because my dad was quite involved with the church on Halban Street.
Right.
And so George Olson, when he came, he hooked up with my dad. And so they were quite involved with the church. So yes, I did have more exposure than many people from Ardenne. And this is why when I hear certain things, I chuckle because I know where some of this is coming from. And
your dad and your mom clearly were very strong influences in your life.
They were, yes. Yeah, my dad, he was very strict in our upbringing. When he died, my mom sort of took over there, and there was 6 of us, well, 5 of us, because my eldest brother, he died young, so I became the only boy, and we just motored on. So what I did was, when I left Jamaica, I took my 2 sisters that followed me through school. The 2 of them went to Ardenne. I paid for all their stuff going through school while I was working and going to school in Toronto. And when they were finished, they take the last 2 girls through school. They went to Excelsior.
Wow.
So,
yeah, that's family for you.
yeah.
Lessons and teachable moments in there. So when did you meet your wife?
My wife lived
Jamaican or Canadian?
Jamaican. Bruce's Paddies. From Bruce's Paddies.
Okay.
They lived about 3 blocks from me in Jamaica. I lived in Vineyard Town there. They lived in Vineyard Town there. They were with Robert Crescent. That was on Langston Road.
Okay.
And I knew the rest of the family, but I didn't know her. She went to Canada to do medical lab technician and things like that there. And I met up with her. There was a place where back then in the 60s, the West Indians would gather because that was only place you could really meet there. So they had a West Indian Christian Fellowship. And on Saturday nights, all those people who left Jamaica, all those people who had Youth for Christ, that's where you go and find them.
Okay.
So I went there and I saw her and we started talking. And then, you know, in 1970, she had finished her studies. In August 1970, we got married.
Oh, amazing. 3 years after going to Canada.
Yeah.
Fast mover, man.
Yeah, that's what I do it, you know, moving. Yes, and it was kind of good because the both of us were feeling our way out. And so we got together and it was interesting. And you know what? She seemed to have almost the same sort of passion about Jamaicans because when we got married, we had an apartment. And on Christmas Eve, we would bring in all those that you remember, come from Jamaica, to our little apartment. And the place would be running over with people.
But I'm sure a great spirit.
Yeah.
Spirit was there.
So we got married then, and we had three kids.
Wonderful lady. I had the good fortune of meeting her. So let me just ask you before we move on. Did you ever have to deal with racism in Canada?
It is here. It is here in different ways. But you have to know how to work it and how to deal with it. And one of the reasons you'll find a lot of Jamaicans going to their business is because of that. We find a lot of Jamaicans in business themselves because after you reach a certain level, you won't go much further. I serve on various boards because of that. I remember going to serve on the United Board of Trustees of Greater Toronto. They raise big monies every year, over $100 million every year. And I went on the board. I'm saying, something is wrong with this picture. I don't understand how come the black community is not getting their fair portion. And that's why there was only one or two of us on the board. And I served 2 terms on the board because I had to make sure that certain things were in place and certain things were done for our community. I served on the school board, various school boards across GTA, because when we formed the Alliance of Jamaican Alumni Association, we had to do a course for youngsters coming from Jamaica back then of dressing, because they would come up and don't realize it's cold, run out there without any coat or anything. Next thing they get a cold, next thing they're out from school, next thing they said they will get some sort of report from school that these kids don't want to come to school. So we had to step in, you know, and educate the teachers, the educators on the culture which they're coming from. So yes, it is there and it's still there. After 50 years there, I see it. And I see it in different ways.
Is that how the Alliance of Jamaican Alumni Associations came about? Because
that was one way. But the Alliance of Jamaican Alumni came about really because the associations were growing in Toronto, and we figured we were going to run into problems with time for dinner dance, for functions. We had 13 alumni associations then. And I remember Barry Hewitt from KC called me and says, Paul, let's get together because it's going to run out of control. So we got together and we formed this association. The idea was to help students coming from the Jamaican education system, helping them to integrate in the Canadian education system. That was part 1. And the part 2 was to help alumni associations with their schools in Jamaica. And the reason why we had to do it that way is to get the registration and the charitable status from the government of Canada, so that we could file for charitable status, so we could go to corporation and ask for funding. We could issue tax receipts for those funding that we would get. But the alliance then it grew. I became the first chairperson. Then we had a restructuring, and I became the first president.
Mm.
And we ran it, and we ran up to 52 alumni associations in Toronto.
Amazing.
And we knew that we only had between March and July to do that fundraising part for schools, and between September and the end of November. So we look at all those schools, and sometimes there were 2 or 3 functions on
Mm-hmm.
for schools trying to raise funds for their school in Jamaica.
And the alliance is behind this major soccer tournament, isn't it?
Soccer Fest, yes.
That's
Yes.
in Toronto. Is
Toronto.
it every year?
Yes. We're not doing it this year. We're doing some restructuring this year. But it started with the Battle of North Street, Casey and George's. And then a few other schools says, we want it in. So Excelsior and Cornwall said, we want it in. And then we had Clarendon College, so we opened it up. So Georgia and Casey now handed it over to the Alliance. And we took it on. And it just opened up. Yes.
Where do you find all this energy, Paul? I mean, you don't seem to be getting much older. You're getting younger. The curious case of Benjamin Button.
I say in most alumni associations, in most organizations, you find people that have similar drive and similar goals and work with them. And I find that, like forming the Alliance of Jamaican Alumni, I had a team second to none. I had somebody who just took on to do the crest. I had somebody who took on to do the objectives. I had somebody who took on to do the banking and the funding. So I was just steering the ship.
Mm.
So any organization I get into, I look and see what are the skills that are on the table, or what skills do we need. And just today I was talking about the Emerging Global Leaders Program and what skills we need to take it to the next level. So
we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. Paul Barnett, the amazing Paul Barnett, distinguished Ardenne alumnus, with us in the hot seat today, talking about his life, talking about being chopped up by a Rastafarian, walking on Trafalgar Park when it was all a wooded area at the deep forest, and coming through all of that to be such a value resource to our alma mater. We'll catch up more with Paul in a little bit after this break, when we will be talking about matters of family and matters of volunteerism and mentorship. We'll be right back.